Hi everybody, I'm Serena. I'm Director of Marketing for the UK and International Markets for Frontier Medical Group. We implemented HubSpot probably 2 years ago now, I want to say, probably a couple of years ago. And just like Nikki's kind of said, I'll talk through some of the challenges that we had before we kind of finally see success. And I guess that's why I've been invited to speak today as the guest speaker. The adoption piece was very real for us. The data was incredibly real for us, and the visibility. Those three buckets, which I think are common in typical B2B manufacturing, were absolute examples of what our hurdles and challenges were for implementing HubSpot and our difficulties with the sales and marketing teams. So a bit about Frontier. We're a med device manufacturer, like Tony's kind of alluded to. We're based in Tredegar in Wales. Our head office is in the UK, and we have offices in the US and Germany. We've got a really vast distribution network. We've got over 26 distributors across the rest of the world. We manufacture med devices. We specialise in pressure area care. We have the typical kind of regulatory constraints. We've got elongated sales processes. We've got risk adverse buyer groups within our customer segments. And we have a traditionally aligned, I think, sales team. They're in field. They're aligned to different territories. We've got a telesales team for all our markets, so UK, Germany, and the United States. And we typically operate in the NHS and the acute setting and in community settings as well. But we've got a big focus on kind of new sectors and how we activate, new customer acquisition in different sectors. So the data piece is really important for us, the relationship behind, what people are buying, what the market looks like, and that data piece is incredibly important to us. But we're a business in transformation. And what that means is that we want to grow and we want to be bigger, faster, stronger, better. And we want to do it quickly, with relative pace behind what we do. There's an alignment, I think, from a leadership perspective in terms of what digital transformation means to Frontier. HubSpot was a significant part of that, and getting alignment between the field sales, between our technologies, behind marketing as well. We've recently implemented a sales excellence program. What that means essentially is providing tools and the toolkit for the sales teams to do their jobs better and more efficiently. HubSpot is a significant part of that. With Tony and Real Inbound and the team, we looked at RevOps, we looked at data-driven decision-making, we looked at how we can make it bigger and better for the teams so that we had better visibility on what we were doing. So before transformation, and I guess it's a duplication really of what Nikki's saying, which is good, we're all aligned, is that the lack of visibility was significant for us. We had very little visibility or understanding of our customer groups. Reporting was a disaster. We couldn't report out. We had very little visibility on our sales team, on our distributors, on our pipeline management, on where efforts was going from the sales team. We didn't really have much visibility on return on investment. I kind of mentioned we're, traditional by nature. So there were a lot of trade shows that we relied on, either events or conferences, leads coming back through the process from the events where the sales team would attend. And we had no visibility on the reporting for that. So that was a significant problem for us. The second one was lack of tools, the lack of tools to enhance the sales process for the sales team. I think the best way to describe it is that a full field sales team, there was no kind of consistency or cohesion behind how one territory manager and another territory manager did their day. And we didn't give them the tools to be able to give them consistency or cohesion in how they approach their day. And HubSpot has enabled us to do that through lead management, custom objective playbooks, through how we manage leads, for example, through the system. There's now a lot more consistency in how our territory managers and our telesales manage the data in there. And then the third one is legacy data and systems. And I guess like all B2B manufacturing businesses, the legacy aspect of the data, the incohesion of data and data sets is a real problem, or it was a real problem for us. I think that's probably one that gave us the biggest headache, Tony, would you say, in terms of the data health, the integrity of the data, the processes behind how we manage the data. It was a big challenge for us in the adoption piece.
Yeah, and you're absolutely not alone. I know we've said it, but you're not alone. That is the first hurdle for everybody attempting this journey. It's a massive problem.
So this looks at the process of what we did. There's the initial choice to be data-driven and aligned with the strategy. And I think that's a really important step in this, is that you have to be aligned on that strategy. Sales and marketing have to align. They have to be collaborative in wanting to do this. It's a big tool and implementation process with a lot of change. There's a lot of adoption. So having alignment on the strategy and having it driven from a leadership perspective was incredibly important. And I don't think you can underestimate how important that step is in terms of wanting to be better, wanting to digitally transform, wanting to have visibility over revenue and growth, and having that alignment and being consistent in that message is really important part for this project. You know, I think I hear Tony say it all the time, HubSpot's not a strategy, but in terms of having a strategy for implementation, it's essential that all your kind of leaders are on board with driving that through from a change management perspective. It was difficult for us. I think this was the section that took the longest time for us. I don't think we necessarily had all our ducks in a row when we invited real inbound in our space to kind of align what that data piece looked like. And just to give context, you know, we had a full sales team that were managing data from either notepads or in their head or from Excel spreadsheets. You know, we had no single source of data. We had to bridge our relationship data with our transactional data from a business that's, you know, 20, 30 years old. It was a real big piece of work to kind of migrate and align. So I think, well, we went with the Sales Hub, Marketing Hub, and Service Ops. That's the three that we have. So we've obviously got a customer service delivery team, we've got marketing, and we've got sales. And again, managing, I guess, the change piece on that, making sure that everybody was kind of integrated, that the data was clean, that the systems were integrated, that training happened, that adoption was a significant piece as well. And then process optimization. And I think, you know, we're still in this bit. I don't think this bit finishes for us. I think we were very clear that implementing HubSpot wasn't the end goal. We have set, you know, milestones and benchmarks to progress it. There's still a lot to the system that we haven't uncovered. And, you know, when Tony and I speak kind of regularly, and, you know, he's always nudging, have you done this? Have you looked at this? What about this? Because there's a lot to kind of build in. But we've customized essentially the system to support us as a business. In terms of some success, we've seen an increase in qualified leads that come through, plus 94%, which is great for us. And that's not just event leads, that's the digital piece that Nikki was kind of talking through earlier. So the landing page and the form fills and profiling our customers or prospects that come through. So that's a really big kind of win from a marketing perspective on how we manage that process through the different teams. 483% increase on attributable revenue. You know, we're not your kind of traditional marketing team. We are commercially driven, and we want to show that we're demonstrating revenue and attribution to revenue and supporting and building from a commercial perspective. So that's a solid success measure for us. You know, supporting and keeping finance and production and ops happy and within a kind of measure for forecasting is again both a positive win for us as well.
Before I advance your next, I just want to go back to that, the points you made around onboarding and data migration. It's great. The nods to HubSpot have been great today, but HubSpot doesn't do this for an organization. Serena and her team, particularly the senior team, the guys on the ground, the salespeople out in the field, everybody has worked extremely hard to make this happen. There have been so many trials and tears, tantrums and tiaras. Yeah, that's just the time. It's incredibly difficult, right? And without that strategic alignment right at the beginning of the piece, that's why the adoption programs fail, guys. If you don't have that, if you don't have the support from the management, and not just the support, not just like management saying, yeah, okay, let's do HubSpot, but management actually wading in and solving the, you know, banging the heads together or soothing the egos or just insisting that these things change. I won't go into it, but I know Serena's personally stepped in on any number of occasions to remove friction, reduce friction then, if not outright remove it, when teams have had to change from one thing to another. It's really difficult. It's really, really difficult. So I just wanted to underline that, HubSpot's a fantastic tool, but this stuff we're talking about here, modernizing your sales and marketing, is a strategic endeavor, right? It's led by the business, led by the organization, enabled by HubSpot, for sure. You did say, and you said that, Serena, but where we stood outside, you guys, and you particularly, because obviously you led the project. Charlene, as we've mentioned before, you were instrumental in making this change. It doesn't happen. HubSpot doesn't change it. You guys change it. Nikki, sorry, did you have are you gonna argue with me?
I have a question just for Serena. I think this is such an interesting story. I'm wondering, was there a compelling event? You mentioned a couple of things like the inefficiencies, the long sales cycle. Was there something internally that said, we have to make a change? Did you bring it as far as you could, or how did that change come about?
I think, look, I've mentioned in the introduction that Frontier, we're a transformation business, and I think we're true from a strategic perspective on what that means to us. We're all from the kind of leaders in the business. We've got a new CEO who's been in post for the last 3 years. We all want to grow, and there's significant kind of growth targets, there's revenue targets, there's ambition to grow and to do things differently and be almost a little bit disruptive with how we do things. That's the culture of Frontier at the moment, and where we're driving that change. And I think where HubSpot fit into that is, how can we grow? How can we show growth? How can we demonstrate growth? But how can we look to do it at pace with the teams? And having no system or having the pre-existing system in place, we just couldn't do that. So there was always adoption from kind of CEO down that this system was going to be in place. But, like Tony said, kind of aligning from a leadership perspective, and then asking a sales team to change, asking the marketing team to change, asking customer care to change, and bring everybody on that journey. It's a significant piece and a lot of time and effort, and you've got to set that vision for everybody, and you've got to, demonstrate results and demonstrate outcomes and demonstrate success almost constantly, and support and train. It's a big piece, but I think now it's fully implemented into the business. We're all using it. I think the processes around it has helped. But I just think from alignment from the beginning on that strategy is what kind of set us off on that journey.
Jack, in the comments, I don't know whether you guys managed to see it because you were chatting. Jack's actually going through big data changes. He says a lot of concern around training salespeople on new behaviors and the potential pushbacks, given these are behaviors and workflows they've had for years or decades, right? So we've all got those salespeople who have been in role 10 years plus, who hit their target and therefore
don't need to change.
What advice, Serena, from the the changee perspective, and Nikki, perhaps from a support perspective, what advice have you got specifically for rolling out big changes to this data entry new way of working for commercial teams? So let's think about poor old salespeople for a minute. What's the best way to make it happen?
So
Serena?
for change management, using that as a process is paramount. You've got to bridge that and get people who can help carry the team and help progress it for you. Get champions, pick out the early adopters, make them champions, and they'll become ambassadors for that project. And people will change. I think if people can see the measures that you're putting in place, the KPIs and the measures, that they've got to jump on the train. It depends how you set that vision and how you drive it forward. But we've got a really solid kind of change management program to support that. There are people that just are resistant to change, but I'm sure they'll come along for the journey.
Or not. Nick, you got anything to add to that from the supplier perspective?
We would, HubSpot's a big company. There's 8,000, maybe more people now in it. And our growth targets this year are 25%, to grow 25% year on year, which is huge for a company that's been around 20 years. So the way we get that and the way we get everyone on board is really just painting a vision, coming from the top down, from the CEO to every team, to everything we do, painting a vision that we have to grow by 25%. What we did before won't get us there. We're implementing these new processes. Maybe there's a new sales training system that we have, or there's new marketing goals because we've shifted a certain direction. And it's really painting that picture, getting everyone on board, going, this is why we're doing them. So it's almost like reversing it. In order to get 25% growth, we have to do these 3 or 4 things. We have to make these changes. If we don't make them, we won't get that growth. We won't be that product. We won't be an enjoyable place to work or to do business. So it's really just making it clear to everyone that we want to get this goal and this is the vision, you know, and so we are telling people the reason why you're making these changes.
Perhaps unsurprisingly, you've both answered in a way I would completely agree with. And I'd like to point out why we've launched Converge. The whole point of Converge is to bring this top down and the bottom up operational piece together in the transformation program, right? We see bottom up change all the time. It's called transactional change, right? People are trying to change from the bottom up. It doesn't happen. You can improve, you can grow even, but if you need to change your business, you need that top down piece. Otherwise, it just doesn't happen. And Serena's painted a brilliant picture of that. And Nikki's just said exactly the same thing, from the 8,000 person, 2 billion turnover, 25% growth target company, HubSpot. You know, it doesn't matter whether you're HubSpot, Frontier, or Converge. These issues are exactly the same. Fantastic. Thanks both. Serena, I'll bring you back into your presentation. This is your last slide, if you wouldn't mind just finishing it off.
Yeah, so this is just, I guess, our transformation journey at a glance. So before modernisation, we had a lack of alignment. We had sales and field sales teams. We had telesales in the mix as well. And we've got business development managers. So again, no consistency, I guess, against how they handle contacts or meetings or data reporting back out. So, you know, there's a big alignment piece on what we want that to look like and the tools that we're helping bridge that with the efficiency piece for sales and the alignment between sales and marketing. I've talked about kind of trade shows, events, and the difficulty in demonstrating return on investment. Now having, I guess, full alignment with sales and marketing as a commercial team. Inefficient lead handoffs, you know, leads would come in. There would be no kind of time aspect in terms of when leads were followed up, which team would do it, who would report back. If they couldn't get hold of a contact, you know, what would happen? Would they report it? Would they follow it up again? It was a mess, you know, and now we've got automated lead flows. They task it to people. If they can't get in contact, they set their own tasks to follow it up. And it sounds really basic and simple, but like I said, it's increased our lead conversion rate. It's increased our attributable revenue targets and revenue coming through the business. So, you know, as a basic principle for HubSpot, it's transformed the business from our perspective. We have different pipelines. We have different products that take longer to convert. We have some more capital expenditure products. They take an evaluation, they'll take a quote, they'll take multiple meeting or multiple conversation points with customers. And now as a business, we understand that, you know, we don't expect a capital equipment product to convert in 3 days. We can manage the expectation of the business, and we can manage that through having different pipelines set up for different portfolios of products, and just streamlined that to the business and having that visibility for the sales team to see, what does my book of business look like? What's my pipeline look like? And what am I forecasting back into the business with relative accuracy? It's transformed the sales team's ability to communicate as well to the business. No visibility of sales efficiency. And I guess what I mean by that is providing that consistency to them with the tools that they can use to help get more information. So playbooks, we've customized different playbooks so we can data capture when they're in meetings. We've created playbooks for them to understand more about their customers, for them to discover or create opportunities with their customers. And again, you know, it's designed for them to do mobile when they're out in field. We don't want to bog our sales team down with dashboard days or administration days. We want them to be pretty reactive when they're, you know, out selling. We want them to sell. Poor data health. Our data was atrocious, let's be honest. We had gaps in legacy data. We had no central source of data. And now we've got segmented cohorts of customers. We know what customers buy what products. And from a marketing perspective, we know when we can target those customers and work them through from a marketing automation piece as well. So for us, the transformation is visible. And as a business, the process of that is reaping success for us as a business.
Amazing. Thanks, Serena. Cheers, Pietro. Thanks for joining us. It's not finished, is it? Yeah, as you said,
It's not finished, no.
You guys work on this daily. This wasn't a one and done project. It wasn't an IT project that you moved off to somebody else. It wasn't given to admins or even a HubSpot partner like us to come in and implement. The whole business lives and breathes it every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's changed, the process changed and they adapt, and how we integrate with the system and how the system supports other systems. It changes all the time. We're in it all the time.